It's BetPARX Saturday, live from the Sportsbook at Parx Casino in Bensalem, Pennsylvania. We are live on the PHLY Sports YouTube page. I'm your host, Jeff Skversky, taking you from 12 to 2 today, alongside my producer, Andrew Frazier. We have a big one tonight. Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Washington Commanders down in the D.C. area. Eagles with the win, of course, clinching the NFC East. We have a jam-packed show today. We're going to talk Eagles with Eagles legend Seth Joyner. He's going to join the show. Of course, lots of sports betting talk with Brad Feinberg, our gambling expert. We're also going to check in with David Aldridge, former NBA reporter who now covers the Washington Commanders down in D.C. And we're going to talk a little Flyers hockey. Flyers legend Chris Terrian, he will join the show later on in the next hour. So jam-packed show today, big Eagles game down in D.C. And we're also going to talk about the Philadelphia Phillies. Lots of little moves this week, including Adolis Garcia and the way this new outfield is shaping up. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Not a big fan. We're going to talk about that as well. We're going to hear from Dave Dombrowski as well as Rob Thompson. So a lot to get to today on this show here at Parx Casino in Bensalem, right before the holidays. And look, this Philadelphia Eagles team, I want to see another big win today, right? I want to see them do what they did against the Las Vegas Raiders, because this team needs that confidence. And let's start with this game. Eagles, 7-point favorites against the Washington Commanders. Again, if they win this game, they clinch the NFC East. They'll be the first repeat champions. How about this? Since the Eagles did it back in 2004, it's been that long. It is really hard. Remember, the Eagles had that great run under Andy Reid and Donovan McNabb, the 4 straight division titles. It hasn't happened in forever. And it goes to show you, for everyone complaining out there, just how hard it is. It is so hard to win. Even Jalen Phillips, the new Eagles edge rusher who got traded from Miami, he said this week that he didn't realize just how competitive the NFC East is. Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard to win. That's why I always say appreciate this run the Eagles have had. This has been the best 25-year run really in Eagles franchise history, and especially the last few years, winning Super Bowls and going to the Super Bowl. So let's enjoy it. In any event, I loved this week. I loved it. No complaining. There was nothing to complain about this week. And if you found something to complain about, please, come on. I mean, really, nothing to complain about. Everything went right. They blew out the Raiders. They were great offensively. They were great defensively. And look, I don't want to hear that, it was against the Raiders. They were on the schedule. They did what they were supposed to do. And I get the Raiders are arguably the worst team in the NFL, but enjoy it. The Eagles did everything right. They looked like a Super Bowl team, and they needed that. Look, the offense, tremendous. The defense, tremendous. Best and first time in Eagles history they've held 75 yards. A team to 75 yards, that's fewest in the Super Bowl era. So look, they did everything right. Enjoy the win. And I want to see that again today against the Commanders, because the Commanders' defense is awful. Second worst defense in all of football. They're terrible against the pass. They're terrible against the run. I want to see the Eagles do what they did against the Commanders today against down in Washington. I just want to see it, and I think that's going to build the confidence. And you need this football team. Look, they haven't played their best football yet, which I think is a great sign. They have not played their best football. Can they play their best football at the right time, right here, right now, and build some confidence from that Raiders game to the Commanders game? Then you have the Bills and the Commanders again. I want to see them playing their best football when it really matters, because these 3 games, this is the prime opportunity to iron out all the issues, especially offensively, and the confidence you're going to get from that Raiders game. And if they can do that again today against the Commanders, I think there's no stopping this team. Nobody in the NFC scares me. They really don't. And I know they can be beat by anybody. I know the Rams could beat them, and the Seahawks and the Lions if the Lions squeak in. But does anyone really scare you in the NFC? I'm not scared by anybody. Even the Bears, who embarrassed the Birds on that Black Friday game, do they really scare you? And so if the Eagles are playing their best football at the right time, which is right now, going into the playoffs, look, I think they can make a Super Bowl run, and that would be tremendous. And I also have to say, I like the way Jalen Hurts has handled himself. Let's be honest, he hasn't had his best year. He hasn't been looking like a Super Bowl MVP, but he's a winner, and his mindset is rock solid. That mentality that he has had, blocking out all the negativity, the fan negativity, the media negativity, the analysts, whether it's locally or nationally, just killing Jalen Hurts. Not only does he tune it out, he doesn't even hear it. Now, I thought this was interesting this week. Nakobe Dean said that, well, look, if I hear it, I know Jalen hears all the negativity. Well, Jalen's like, Nakobe, I don't hear any of that stuff. I don't hear any of that negativity. I tune it out. I am laser focused on getting better week in and week out. Listen to what Jalen Hurts said this week about Nakobe Dean and blocking out all the pressure and all the noise. Take a listen to this.
Say he'd be a broke man if we made that bet.
How are you able to do that?
It's who I am. It's who I am. It's my focus. It's in my first rodeo, so very unprecedented journey to be here, but unprecedented is unprecedented.
Playing quarterback in the NFL, you are going to get a lot of attention. I think, positive, negative, all attention, right? And I think that when that happens, like any little thing can be a distraction. We talk about this a lot as a team. Like any little thing, what distracts you? What can distract you that you need to block out? And I think that why Jalen can handle it so well is because he's so locked in and focused and not distracted by things, to be able to lock in onto what he needs to do to get himself ready to play.
Perceived pressure is perceived pressure. Yeah.
Does that mean that you feel it, or does that mean that it's external?
I mean, it's perceived. Isn't that like like the root word for perception in some regard?
Who?
Yeah, perception by those who are watching. I'm not watching. I'm living.
Certainly, there's probably not much
doing.
You can.
You work really hard to show up when your team needs you the most. All of the perceived pressure, whatever that is, just really preparing for a moment, preparing for an opportunity, and knowing that that resilience, determination, and perseverance can bring it home, for the group. So I'd say that's pretty valuable for me to be able to take pride in, I guess, to take pride in showing up when my team needs me to the most.
I just love that. I love that mentality from Jalen Hurts because he's not riding the roller coaster. He's not riding the wave of emotion that the fans have. And I've seen it, right? We've seen it over and over and over again over time. Fans get high, the fans get low, and Jalen is steady, and you need that, especially the face of the franchise, especially the quarterback. You cannot have him paying attention to all the nonsense. And it really is nonsense. This football team has been, not playing to their best, but if you look at the entire body of work over the last few years, over the last 20 years, it's been a great run. And it's just a fact. They're not going to win the Super Bowl every year. It's hard. What the run the Chiefs had, that's hard, nearly impossible. That run the Patriots had when they had that dynasty, very, very difficult. So Jalen, that rock-solid personality, I love it. He's always stoic, and I know some people want him to be showing more personality, and we've seen a little bit of that on Hard Knocks. If you've been watching Hard Knocks, which does such a great job, the behind-the-scenes stuff, when guys are mic'd up, Jalen does have personality, but he's so focused. It's always businesslike, but you do see those glimpses with his teammates, with A.J. Brown, with Brandon Graham, with others. He does have good relationship with his teammates and with Nick Sirianni. Does tension come up once in a while? Of course it does. Of course it does. It comes up with whether you're married, whether girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever it is, with your friends, sometimes things come up, right? But that doesn't mean you don't love them. That doesn't mean you don't like them. That doesn't mean you don't care about them. And I know people want him to have more personality, but Nick Sirianni's belief, and this is why I think players like Nick Sirianni, is he's a darn good coach, arguably the best in Eagles history. I mean, look at he's done in a short period of time. And does he have his flaws? Of course he does. Andy Reid had flaws that we saw firsthand for years. And, look, Andy Reid's going to go down as one of the greatest coaches ever. Okay, we did not appreciate him as much when he was here, and it was time for him to go and the whole thing, and that's a whole another story. But when you talk about Jalen's personality, Nick Sirianni lets these guys just be themselves, and he has talked to them. Sirianni, we've seen this, talk to them, find joy in this game. Even when you're losing, find joy in it to get better. And he keeps using that word joy, but he wants guys to be themselves. And Hurts is just like, listen, I find joy in winning, whether it's pretty, whether it's ugly, I don't care. I just want to win. And that's when Jalen Hurts is happy literally for like 2 seconds. And then, he's trying to figure out the next game plan and get better from that, even if he has, 4 touchdowns or whatever. So listen to Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts talk about showing that personality. I know the fans want to see more personality from Jalen Hurts, but this will give you a little bit of a glimpse into just how Jalen Hurts is wired. Listen.
I want everybody to be who they are and show the personality that they have. And, this world is great because not everybody's exactly the same, right? That would be a boring world if everybody was exactly the same, or if Jalen was telling me not to get as excited as I get, right? And same thing, like I see emotion from it. I see emotion from him a lot of, when he makes a play or is pumped up about a play. So, everybody has their own way of celebrating things, and I love when he shows emotion. I love when he goes to the sideline and plays the next play. Like, I'm good. Show your personality, show who you are, and that goes for everybody on our team within the rules of the game. Don't get a penalty.
There is a sense of excitement that comes from winning. There's a sense of competitive peace that comes from winning because you put forth the effort to go out there and do great things, and you guys come up here and you hear me talk about from a competitive standpoint, what's most important to me? What do I care about the most? It's about winning. It's not about how it looks. It's not about how it gets done or any of those things. It's about winning. And I think, to your question earlier, asking about the clutch factor. So I could care less how the game goes, but when you got an opportunity to win it in the end, those are the moments that you relish in and take pride in. And so if it's something that I'm unable to meet in that moment, I use it, I learn from it, and then I find a way to win the next time around.
And he does. He's done a great job of that. And I know everyone wants this team to look like a video game week in and week out, and they want it to look like Madden football on EA Sports, and they want it to look like a video game. Then what you run into is, okay, if they can't win close games because they're blowing everyone out, then that becomes an issue. And so I always just try to say, enjoy the wins. And you never know when this franchise could turn into, I don't want to say the Jets or the Browns or the Lions, what they were, but it's possible, right? And so this has been a great run under Jeffrey Lurie. He's been a great owner. And this football team, look, they are in position to make a Super Bowl run. I truly believe that. And what they've done around Jalen Hurts the last few weeks, I've liked, and I think it's led to better quarterback play, especially against the Raiders. They have protected him. The last 6 weeks, they've only allowed 4 sacks. And Sunday versus the Raiders, they had their fewest penalties in a game all season. It starts up front. They're protecting Jalen Hurts better. They've cut down on the sacks. And on top of it, the simple mistakes, the penalties. They were among the league leaders in penalties and penalty yards. And so the fact that they have cut that out is a great sign. Again, if they can get hot at the right time, which is right now, building off that Raiders win, today against the Commanders, then against the Bills and against the Commanders again, there's no stopping this team. I truly, truly believe that again. They need a big game today from Jalen Hurts and this offense to get going. So, can this team make a Super Bowl run? Do the fans need to just calm down just a little bit? I know it hasn't been picture perfect, but everything is right in front of them. I caught up with former Eagles star, Eagles Hall of Famer, 3-time Pro Bowler Seth Joyner. Very opinionated, great insight. Nobody knows the game better than Seth Joyner. He is arguably the best analyst in town, the one and only Seth Joyner. I caught up with him yesterday to talk about the Eagles, to talk about this Commanders game and the big picture, and also the fans. He has a message for all the fans out there. Maybe you want to relax. Listen to Seth Joyner. Here's my conversation with the Eagles great. We caught up yesterday. Eagles Hall of Famer Seth Joyner, what's happening?
What's going on, Jeff? How you been, man?
Is it true, like LaShawn McCoy, you're going to give back your Wall of Fame jacket if they don't let go of Kevin Patullo?
No, I mean, they seem to figure it out, last week. I mean, I think beginning in the Chargers game, they began to make some changes that will make the offense operate a lot more efficiently. It's so hard to see those changes in the midst of your quarterback throwing, 4 interceptions in a game, but it was there. It was there.
Yeah. I heard LaShawn McCoy say that, last week or whatever, and I'm like, what is he talking about? But in any event, it looks like the Eagles figured it out against the Raiders, and I know it's the Raiders of all teams, but as a former player, it has to give you confidence. They're on your schedule. You beat them. There's, for once in feels like a year, there's been nothing to complain about this week. At least I don't think there's anything to complain about. So how much does that give you confidence going into the rest of the season?
Well, listen, it's the first complete game they've had all season long. So it's taken them, 14, 15 weeks to get to a point where they can have a complete game where the defense and the offense shows up together. So that's a move in the right direction because they've been playing off of each other all season long. See primarily the defense has been carrying this team, and every once in a while the offense will have a day, where they're carrying the offense. Obviously special teams, plays a role, but you want to be peaking at the right time.
Are they? Well, yeah, I was going to ask you, do you think they are peaking, or is it too early to know that?
I think that these next 3 games will give us an indication. The thing that I fear the most, Jeff, is that, this team has historically been an organization that errs on the side of safety and caution as far as taking care of its players. And for the first time, in a while, they've been inundated with injuries, particularly on the offensive line. They've just been going through it. Lane's been out, Landon and Cam Jurgens has been out, sporadically throughout the season. AJ missed some games. It's just, they've had their share of, injury issues. And I haven't even gotten over to the defensive side of the ball yet. But the thing that I fear is that, they potentially could be locked into the 3 seed. And if they're locked into the 3 seed, I get the sense that they're probably going to start resting people. And I don't know, I understand why you would do that, but the way that the offense has struggled all year, they need these last 3 games, specifically the Bills game. They need to play against top tier talent to see where they are and use that as a measuring stick. But I get the sense that, if they win the division on Saturday and all the other pieces fall into place as far as, okay, no matter what we do, we're stuck in with the 3 seed, that they might start resting people.
What do you think their biggest issue is? I mean, do you think it's just the continuity and the offense gelling and, all season you're believing like it's going to click, but is that, when you look at this team, is that the easy thing that, hey, that's the biggest issue with this team right now?
Listen, I think it's a combination of things. It's Kevin Patullo, first year, making calls. If you look at this offense, and I don't know why it is, they always are running down, to the last 5 seconds of the play clock before, they're snapping the football. So I don't know whether the players are getting in late or, or what the circumstances are, I think that they want to be a run first team, but teams have zeroed in on trying to stop Saquon, and they've done a damn good job of it this year. And that's caused them to kind of, regroup and refocus how they want to attack defenses. You saw in the Chargers game, Jalen threw the ball 40 times. I don't think they want to do that. I don't think any team really wants to do that. There's only, I can count the number of quarterbacks in the National Football League that can throw the ball 40 times plus times in a game without there being issues. They don't want to do that. But they felt like they had to. There were games against the Bears, against the Chargers, where they felt against the Cowboys in the fourth quarter, where they felt like they had no other alternative but to just line up and throw it every down. As far as identity is concerned, I think that identity is a bunch of BS because
I agree. Yeah, I'm like, who cares? Right.
Yeah, last year they had an identity as a running team. That's fine, okay? But identity, in my opinion, is determined by how a team is trying to play you. Like if you're going to put 8 guys in the box, trying to run it downhill is like banging your head against the wall, and we see them doing it all the time. If that safety is offset, okay, if you're going to give me a true too high look, then both safeties are going to be lined up 10 to 12 yards deep to start, and they're going to back up on the snap of the ball. When you start to get one safety lined up at 10 to 12, the other one's lined up at 7, that's automatically telling you, okay, that they are going to, roll that 7th or 8th guy down in the box. So Jalen has to see that, and they got to get him out of the huddle fast enough for him to see that, meaning he needs to be out of the huddle within 15 seconds of the play clock, so that when there's trying to disguise, okay, he can hard count him, he can see it, he can change the play at the line of scrimmage, because you are not going to run the ball efficiently with the extra guy in the box unless you're running RPO type things or unless you're running read option type things, which they really don't like to do.
So what are you seeing from Jalen Hurts in particular? Okay, let's say the play call is not coming in time. That's not necessarily his fault. Well, what are you seeing from Jalen Hurts? Is it mental? Is it mechanics? Is it his height? A lot of people don't talk about his height. He's shorter than all the offensive linemen. And what do you think it's all of the above? What are you seeing from Hurts? Because when we saw him in the Super Bowl, when we've seen in the last 2 Super Bowls that he's played in, he played an MVP caliber football. So what is going on with Jalen Hurts this year?
That's an interesting question. I think that, and you look at the last game and you look at the beginning of the year when they got off to a 4-0 start, I just believe that he does better when the play is called and he's throwing the ball to the open guy. And that might be Devontae, that might be Dallas, that might even be, one of the 2 or 3 guys that they're using in the slot now, okay? I think that life becomes difficult for him when the intention is to get AJ the ball, or when he feels like he has to push him the ball. I don't agree with it. I think that, whoever's up that game is the reason why you're going to win. And the matchup might be like, Patrick Surtain against AJ Brown is a matchup that you don't want to mess with, because he's an elite defender and he can handle AJ by himself. Okay. So why are you going to keep throwing at the guy, when you got all these other matchups? Wherever the best matchup, that's where the ball should go. As far as Jalen is concerned, it's like you got another guy with another voice that's in his ear all over again. And even though Kevin Petullo's been here, he hasn't always been the play caller. So
Right.
that's a misnomer to believe that because he's been here since Jalen got here, or since Nick's got here, I should say, that there shouldn't be that disconnect. That's not true, because guys have different jobs and different roles, and now he's making the calls, he's making the plays. So it's a whole nother lane that he's in. But I think also them not wanting to put him under center. It's not that he doesn't want to be under center. I don't buy that. I think that, they like to operate from the shotgun. You saw last week he was under center 30 out of 66 plays. That brings true play action pass into the
Sure.
deal. Bootlegs, get him out of the pocket. It allows you to free him up. But man, if you're going to line up in shotgun 95% of the time, and I know all the runs primarily have to go across my face, now, and how do you run read option out of those looks? So an RPO, how do you get those things implemented? I'm not saying that Jalen has to run the ball 15, 16 times a game, but the RPO has to be something you have to make defenses prepare for and be aware of.
I was saying maybe a few weeks ago that I feel like his head is spinning, and he's alluded to it, just having all the different play callers and the toll it's taken. He's talked about it a few times this season, not a ton because he kind of keeps things close to the vest, but he's let it out, the cat out of the bag a little bit with the 6 play callers in 6 years, and that's just with the Eagles. That's not going back to Alabama and Oklahoma. And maybe it's just catching up to him because, as you're saying, they're taking away the run. Teams, that looks like they're coming in and saying, hey, we're going to take away Saquon. We're going to let Jalen beat us. So he has all this in his head. And then you have A.J. Brown over here saying what he's saying and wanting the ball. And I get A.J.'s point of view. At the same time, look, they fed A.J. Brown the ball 3 straight games, over 100 yards, and they lost them all. And Jalen is just, it seems like, of the mentality, he doesn't care if it's sloppy or ugly. He doesn't care. He just wants to win. And then you're trying to find this balance and make everyone happy. And then the fans are complaining. So I would imagine his head is just spinning.
Yeah, but you want to know something? Quarterbacks are remembered by wins.
I agree.
Quarterbacks are remembered by, which are the ones that we revere. We revere the ones that won Super Bowls. Okay. The debate will rage whether Tom Brady is the greatest of all time or whether Joe Montana or who. I played against Montana. I played against, John Elway and with him. I played against Dan Marino, so I've got my own opinion. Everybody's going to have their opinion, but we always measure these quarterbacks by, their ability to win games and how they perform in big moments, and Jalen doesn't give to what's about what it looks like. The only thing he cares about is that you come out with the win. I think other people may have ulterior motives in what they do and why they do it and how they do it. But give me the guy that only cares about winning, because it's never going to be perfect. I don't understand this thought that there should be this level of perfection in such an imperfect game. When you're playing on air or you're in practice on 7-on-7, it can be perfect, okay? But when you implement, those defensive players that get paid to play and those coordinators that get paid to coordinate, and they're opposing you, now everything doesn't always look perfect, and your ability to adjust on the fly and improvise is going to often be the difference between you being able to win and you losing games. And you look at his record. Whatever Nick Sirianni's record is, that's Jalen Hurts' record. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's pretty damn good, because he's in rare company as far as his wins and losses over a 5-year span.
I try to tell people, I'm like, this is the greatest run of Eagles football. And when you do look back at it, if everyone just take a step back and say, man, like this team has been unbelievable, so is Jalen Hurts. And then it leads me to go, I grew up in this town. You played in this town. You're now an analyst in this town. Like, we're just too hard on the athletes. Like, people felt like they ran Mike Schmidt out of town, right? Like, with the Phillies. I mean, we're too hard on the athletes. I mean, Jalen Hurts won you a Super Bowl. He could have won you a second one. People are hard on Donovan, and they're too hard on the athletes. Would you agree that people are just too hard on the athletes in this city, that we're in this bubble?
Well, I think it's a habit, Jeff, because, people used to ask me before they won the Super Bowl in 2017. People used to always ask me, man, why are the Philadelphia fans so ornery? I said, okay, let me take you through this. All right. So there's a team in New England that's won multiple Super Bowls.
Sure.
Okay. There's two teams in New York. One won one back in the 70s. The other one has won three, I think. Okay. I said, you come down, just go past Philadelphia. Okay, we'll get there. Washington has won multiple. The team in Baltimore has won multiple, and they're a new franchise. The old one left and went to Indianapolis. Okay. I said, Miami has won. If you go west in the state of Pennsylvania, that team has won more than anybody else. The Eagles ain't won a damn thing in 57 years. And you wonder why we're so up in arms and why we're so pissed off. Okay, now, so they won in 17. They went to two and within the last 3 years and won one, defending champion last season. But guess what? They can't get out of their own freaking way. Like they are so that mindset pre 2017 is so entrenched, Jeff, that they can't find any gratitude, you know, for having won two within the last 8 years and gone to three, you know, after getting no love at all. It's like when you say to them, "Oh, their Super Bowl window is open. They got to strike now." Okay, everybody loses their freaking minds, and it's just you. They're not satisfied with the wins. In the media, we aren't. On the radio, we aren't. Even on my show, you know, we only talk about in our pre and post game show. We talk about the good things a small percentage of the time in comparison to how we analyze and break down, you know, the bad things and what went wrong, even in a win. You know, that's just the nature of who we are, and I think it's been created and bred and developed in a way because it's been so long. Everybody else has had success before we've been allowed to enjoy our success, and because we've languished so long, we're just in this rut and we can't get out. We can't get to gratitude. We can't get to thankfulness. It's just a part of our being. And I don't think it'll ever change.
It is crazy though, because I always think about these two stories, and they're two of my favorite stories I tell about Philly fans. Phillies win the World Series in 2008, opening day 2009, 90 minutes after getting their World Series ring. The Phillies are getting booed in their home opener. And I'm like, can we just relax? And then you talk about the 17 first Super Bowl championship win, opening day 2018 against the Atlanta Falcons. Literally at halftime, after unveiling the banner, the first Super Bowl banner, they are booed off the field at halftime because the Eagles offense, they were struggling against the Falcons. And I'm going, oh my goodness, like really? We just won a Super Bowl. And you go back to the Phillies, you just won a World Series. It's just never good enough in this town. So what's your message to Philly fans? Is it to relax a little bit and enjoy it, enjoy the process, or are you behind this?
Listen, I don't know that. Like I said, I don't know that they could ever change. But I feel like there's a level of gratitude that you have to have with this, with all of our sports. When you have success, you got to be thankful for it. You got to enjoy it. And I think more than anything, if you can remember, and it's problematic, especially on the football side, because the Eagles got close so many times under Andy. 5 NFC championships, and they could never, in one Super Bowl, they could never get it done.
Yeah.
So there's a generation of football that knows winning and knows getting close, but so there's that angst there with that generation. Then there's that generation, team when I played, and it's like that generation before that. Like we went from like the doormat of the NFC, along with the Cardinals, to us being competitive during my era, and not being able to even win a playoff game, to now you go to the era of Andy, and all of a sudden they go to 5 NFC championships and 1 Super Bowl and can't win one. And then all of a sudden, Doug comes in, wins 1 in 17. Sirianni takes you in, 23 and 20, 22 and 2024. And so there's this there's these gaps, these periodical gaps with these fans. You know, some of them can't remember the lean years and what it was like when the team absolutely stunk. You know, and they'll never be able to identify. But it's like the current fans, all they know is win now, and they get bent out of shape when the team doesn't have success. Like there's a lot of teams in the National Football League that would love to be 9-5 and right there in the mix of the playoffs.
I agree.
You
They've been
know,
relevant every year for 25 years.
yeah, yeah. But I don't know. I mean, I just you can tell people. I even said it on WIP one morning. I was like, these fans need to learn how to be a little more grateful. And then Chuck from was it Chuck? I think it was Chuck from Monterey called in and, tried to give me the business before I had to shut him down. I'm like, y'all don't understand, man. You don't understand how hard it is to win a game, let alone win a Super Bowl. The things that have to go right in order for you to win a Super Bowl. And this team just won one last year, and y'all are complaining like, they hadn't won one since 1950 something. It's crazy.
Yeah. So, all right. So last few things for you. Do you think they can flip the switch? They look great against the Raiders and make a Super Bowl run. Do you think this team has it in them? Obviously on paper they do, but from what you've seen, do you believe they can flip that switch and make a Super Bowl run here?
Yes, I think that, if you can get Lane back 100%, then that allows you to move Fred Johnson back to your six-man package, because right now they can't use that. I think that if you get Jalen, under center, probably about 25 to 30% of the time, just to give offenses different looks. If the mindset is to continue to, get the ball to whoever's open, we're not going to force the ball to AJ. We're not going to force the ball to anybody. Dallas Goedert, last week against the Raiders had 7 targets, 6 catches for 70 yards and 2 touchdowns. Okay, it was his day. It could be anybody's day at any time. If the offense works that way, it makes it harder to defense an entire team than it is one specific player. And then obviously they got to get the run game going. It looked better last week. They ran it 47 times for 189 yards. That's a lot of runs. So the average isn't that great, but get Jalen going, running the ball, at least the threat of the RPO and the read option, again, makes defenses play you honest, and it makes defensive coordinators have to prepare for it. And then, on the defensive side of the ball, we haven't talked much about them at all. I think what Vic Fangio is doing is just phenomenal. How you can switch and flip the confidence level of Adoree Jackson from where he was at the beginning of the season to how he's playing now. The insertion of Marcus Epps at safety, I think, has been a godsend. You haven't heard anything about him at all, so that's normally a good thing. The defensive front is playing well without Carter. He'll be back within the next week or two. And, the linebackers are starting to wake up and starting to make plays. And DeJean and Mitchell, they're just doing what they do. They're both Pro Bowl worthy. And listen, if they can get hot at the right time, like I've seen teams, that first New York Giants team that won a Super Bowl with Eli, I can remember in week 17 watching them beat the Patriots. And the Patriots had an opportunity to really stomp on their necks. Now they were a wild card team and got all the way to the Super Bowl and beat the Patriots because they got hot at the right time in the Super Bowl. I don't think the Eagles are no different. They struggle. That same Giants team struggled throughout the entire year. They struggled, trying to find their identity, trying to figure out, what they were going to look like. And then all of a sudden, all the stars aligned and everything's set right at the right time. Yeah. I mean, if they get hot at the right time, they got just as good a shot as anybody else, to get it done.
Yeah, and they have found different ways to win games this year, and I don't really think anyone in the NFC overly scares me. Obviously, the Rams are great. We saw what the Seahawks are doing, and maybe the Lions won't even make the playoffs, but no one really scares me in the NFC. So obviously, you and your wife are doing some great work off the field. Tell me about the Joyner Family Foundation.
So we started our family foundation last year, and we fundraised last year, and all of our focus was on the children's hospital. So we got an opportunity to buy a ton of stuff for the kids at the children's hospital. We got to go over for a day, in there. So they've got like a TV show over there, where you go in and they're broadcasting, they play bingo games, prizes, and all that kind of stuff. So we got to host 2 shows on that day and got to, meet some of the kids. This year we chose to adopt 3 families. So with Legacy Plastic Surgery and Aesthetics, we partnered, we raised boatload of money and went out and bought all the gifts and, gifts for the kids and um, a Christmas dinner, gift cards, gas cards for the parents. And then last Saturday, we got the honor to go and deliver all the stuff to the families. And let me
Wow.
tell you, it was unbelievable. Um, it was unbelievable because, first of all, the greatest gift that we all have to give is love. So when you show up to somebody's door that's not expecting you, and you're bringing love like that, the reaction, the reaction itself, it turns around and it blesses you. You're going to bless somebody else, but in the process, you get blessed. That's what was the most awesome thing to me. And then, to get to understand, you know, the issues within these families. There's medical issues that's going on. Like there's one kid that got hit by a bus last year, traumatic brain injury. He had to, learn how to walk, talk, speak, everything all over again. And he's like, 13, 14 years old. There's another little girl. This one like really touched my heart. It makes you wonder why. Single parent mom. She's got 3 kids. One boy, the boy who's the middle child is autistic, and the little girl, she's about 6, maybe 7 years old. She's going through her second bout with cancer. Just started her chemo at the beginning of this week. Now that really hurt, because if you saw her, you wouldn't think that anything was wrong. Just full of life, full of energy, just vibrant. Came and grabbed me by the hand. Hey, you want to see my dollhouse? And she's telling me all. I mean, it's just I can't tell you, how blessed myself and my wife were just to be with these families last Saturday. So we're looking to continue to do more stuff like that. I'm certain that because of how it all went down, that my wife's going to want to continue to do it that way, because you can see the tangible results. You can see the difference that you're making because now you can touch the people. The Children's Hospital is near and dear because, I've got 2 kids, a grandson and another grandchild on the way. So it's like, when it comes to the kids, it's like, you can empathize with that. You know what I'm saying? Even though you can't see where the benefits go, you can empathize with that because you're a parent or a grandparent. But when you can actually go and touch the people, and the lady like grabs me and hugs me and she's crying, that makes all the difference in the world. And those are the kind of differences and changes that we want to see, be, and make through our family foundation.
Yeah, as much as of an impact you made on the field during your playing days, people will remember this stuff more so, I feel like, and what you and your wife are doing in the community and doing at the hospital and helping those kids out is just tremendous.
Sure, for sure.
Seth Joyner, great insight on the Eagles and great work with your foundation. Thanks so much for joining me.
You got it, my friend. You got to have a happy holiday, you and your family,
too.
man. All righty.
You can just see the passion, just how much Seth Joyner has for not only the work he does in the community, but of course, Eagles football. And he believes the Birds can make another Super Bowl run. Let's hope they can do just that. Obviously, great insight there from Seth Joyner, telling really the Eagles fan base to just let's enjoy this. Let's calm down. Everything we have talked about week in and week out here on BetPARX Saturdays live from the Sportsbook on in Parx Casino in Ben Salem here on the PHLY Sports YouTube page. Jeff Skversky alongside my producer Andrew Frazier. We've talked about it. Just relax, right? Just calm down. Seth saying it right there. You know, the fans, they still have that edge. Not saying you can't be hard on the team, but just put it in perspective. Just this great run they have been on. And again, great work by Seth Joyner in the community. All right, tonight at Parx Casino, Aaron Lewis and the Stateliners in concert. Some tickets are still available. You can go to the website, pick up some tickets there, or the box office just announced February 28th. Country artist Brett Young will be here. March 14th, it's a big one. Comedian Tracy Morgan will be in Ben Salem here at Parx Casino. April 3rd, Cheap Trick. May 14th, the Wallflowers. Some great lineups here coming up. You, of course, can give the gift of entertainment this holiday season. Tickets to see national headliners at the Excite Center at Parx Casino here in Ben Salem are still available. You can check it out. They make some great gifts. Parx Casino has something for everyone's entertainment taste. Some of the other big headliners coming up Saturday, January 17th, Classic Rockers, Grand Funk Railroad. Saturday, January 31st, the Marshall Tucker Band and Jefferson Starship. Saturday, February 7th, Piano Man, Generations, a tribute to Elton John and Billy Joel. And then Melissa Etheridge, April 18th on a Saturday. Tickets for that impressive lineup at parxcasino.com. You can buy tickets. Of course, you must be 21. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, let's get back to some Eagles talk. Our next guest on the show, you know his name. You know his face. David Aldridge. He's a columnist for The Athletic in Washington. Does a great job covering the Commanders and everything in between. You've seen him on TNT. You've seen him on ESPN. Does a great job covering the NBA as well over the years. He even worked for the Philadelphia Inquirer from, I believe, 2004 to 2008. Let's bring him into the show here on BetPARX Saturday. David Aldridge, how's it going?
I'm good, Jeff. How are you?
Good. Thanks for joining us. So you're headed to the game right now, right?
As soon as I'm done talking to you.
All right. You're going to get going. We'll keep it short so you can get out of here. David, you worked for the Philadelphia Inquirer. I don't think a lot of people, I don't know if a lot of people remember that, but, people I think view you as obviously what you're doing now with The Athletic and, of course, TNT, ESPN. But can you compare what it was like being a columnist, being a writer in Philadelphia versus Washington?
Oh, Jeff, I loved working for the Inquirer. I really did. Getting to see Philly and its sports teams and its fans up close really was a good education for me because I had all the stereotypical thoughts about Philly fans like everybody else. But when you're there,
we were just talking to Seth Joyner about that, and he's like, just relax, calm down.
Yeah, well, that is part of it, but the fan base is really knowledgeable, and that's what I really came across. No matter what sport I covered, I tried to cover everything. First, I started with NFL and Eagles because that was when they went to the Super Bowl and they played the Patriots. But then I did a lot of Sixers, did some Phillies because the Phillies, those Rollins and teams were starting to come up to power and play well, and just really enjoyed working there. I really did. It is sometimes their passion's a little misguided, but that's okay. It's John Thompson used to always say it's easier to calm somebody down than to wind them up. So
right.
I really did enjoy it. Had a lot of fun when I was doing it.
It's interesting because Josh Harris, of course, owns the Philadelphia 76ers, and then he owns one of the Eagles' biggest rivals in the Commanders, and I'm like, worlds colliding like crazy there. And I know for Josh, he grew up a huge Redskins fan, so for him to own the Commanders is just a thrill, and you have that perspective, obviously, of covering both teams. And I wanted to find out, with the Eagles playing the Commanders tonight, when you look at the Commanders and that's the massive, awful collapse of a season they've had this year, are you shocked that they have gone from, in the NFC Championship game, but really since getting blown out against the Eagles last year in the championship game at the Link, they've just had an awful run here, and I know it's been injury-plagued, starting with Jaden Daniels.
I would say, Jeff, that they probably overachieved a little last year. I don't think it was like massive overachievement, but I think they did overachieve a little bit. Jaden Daniels had a great season last year. Like, not good, great. He was great. He was Rookie of the Year for a reason. His impact was phenomenal. And a lot of the older players that they brought in with him had great seasons. Zach Ertz had a career year at age 33. I shouldn't say career. He had one of the a real bounce back year at 33. Bobby Wagner had a terrific year last year. Terry McLaurin, who's not quite as old as those two, had his biggest year in terms of touchdown catches. I mean, they really just, their impact players played at an extremely high level last year. And their defense, even though it wasn't great, they produced a lot of turnovers and they had a lot of quarterback sacks and hurries. And they haven't had either of those things this year. I think they still have just 8 turnovers this year in 14 games, which is absurd, right? Like that's just,
right, sure.
You just can't win when you never turn the other team over. So they just, and they've had a lot of injuries on top of that. And McLaurin held out. And I think that just kind of ruined McLaurin's chance at a good season. You saw last week, he was back and healthy and immediately went for, a big touchdown in the fourth quarter to put the Giants game away. He's very good, but there was no mini camp. There was no training camp. There was no preseason for him and Jaden Daniels. They never got in sync. And then Jaden got hurt 3 times, 3 separate times, 3 separate injuries. So he's only played 7 games. You're not going to win when your best player plays in 7 games and is injured in some of those 7 games. So just a nightmare of a season, but they have a lot of work to do. They've got a lot of work to do. Their roster isn't nearly good enough, especially on the defensive side of the football. They have got to do some real triage this offseason to make that defense better, because right now they're not good at all.
One of the worst defenses in football. I mean, 31st overall. Yeah, I mean, it's bad. And, and I'm trying to figure out what I can make of this Jaden Daniels season. And I get it. He's barely played. He's been injured. And, you're never 100%. But when you're coming off injury, you're never 100%. But he got a lot of praise last year. He played tremendous and led that team. I mean, have people in Washington, have Commanders fans, have they lost faith in Jaden Daniels? Have they lost faith in Dan Quinn? Or is it just chalked up to be, these are all these injuries, it's no one's fault, we're going to reset for next year, and, we see that with them shutting down Jaden Daniels. Is it as simple as that, or is there more to it? Are people losing confidence after that great season from a year ago?
I'd say there's a portion of the fan base that's completely forgotten what happened 10 months ago.
Sounds like Eagles fans. Yeah.
Yeah, which is just, kind of absurd, but that's sports. People forget everything. Forget how good this guy was last season with, again, the receiver room last season was vastly different than the receiver room this season. It wasn't just Terry McLaurin being healthy all season. They got great production from De'Ami Brown. They got Noah Brown came in and gave them a great season last year. They brought in a veteran like Jamison Crowder. You remember caught the game-winning touchdown against the Eagles last year. They just had a bunch of guys producing. Well, De'Ami Brown took the bag in Jacksonville, which is right. Noah Brown's been hurt all season, hasn't played at all. Terry, as I mentioned, is having a subpar season, and the guys that they hoped would come in and produce, they've been okay. Jalen Lane, who was one of the draft picks this year, he's really more of a punt returner. He's taken 2 punt returns for touchdowns. Hasn't really done what I think they were hoping in terms of wide receiver. And then Luke McCaffrey, who they drafted last year, was starting to produce out of the slot and then got hurt on a kickoff and missed half of the season. He's out for the season. So, again, the things that contributed to Jaden and Zach Ertz, who had a great year last year, didn't have a great year this year, and then tore his ACL, and he's out for the season. So, again, it sounds like you're making excuses, but all the guys that he threw the ball to, they're not here this year.
Right.
And the people that brought in to replace them aren't nearly as good. So they have got to fix that receiver room as well. But the main thing to me is the defensive side. The drop-off is substantial, dramatic. They're playing more zone now, so they're not giving up as many explosives, but it doesn't matter. I mean, the Vikings literally had the ball for 12 minutes and drove 98 yards and 19 plays for a touchdown 2 weeks ago. So they're dying slow or they're dying fast, but they're dying all the same.
Yeah, and you really wonder what's next for Zach Ertz. I mean, of course, he is beloved in Philadelphia. He's a very emotional guy, wears his emotions on his sleeve. I'll never forget when he was traded from Philadelphia, he was crying. He was upset, and that was a difficult final year. There was lots of talks about, hey, is this it for Zach Ertz? And it kind of dragged on for a while. And you saw that just raw emotion when he was carted off a few weeks ago in the Commanders game, and he suffers that devastating injury. You know his work ethic. You know how much he loves the game and cares. What do you think happens with Zach Ertz? What is your feeling? Do you think this is the end of Zach Ertz and that's the final game that he's played in? Or do you think, he will try to make a comeback? And would it be with the Commanders?
Well, I don't think it'll be with anybody else. I doubt anybody else would sign him knowing he's going to miss half of next season because he just tore it 2 weeks ago. So, he's going to be out 9 months minimum, probably longer. So if he does re-sign, it'll be in Washington, I would think. But look, Washington's got to think about that position too. They drafted a guy in the second round last year, a tight end, who was supposed to be the heir apparent, who hasn't done anything yet. And they have to find out if he can play or not. So certainly last week, and I think these last 3 games, they're going to put him out on the field and see how comfortable they feel about him taking over next year at tight end. But look, I think I can't imagine that's how Zach wants to go out. I'm sure he's going to try very hard. He's going to rehab his butt off. He's an incredibly hard worker, but he's 34 and he's coming off a bad season. And he's a free agent. So, the team has to want to bring him back. And certainly if they bring him back, it will not be at a very high number. He's got to be willing to accept that. So it's a big question mark right now, Jeff. I don't know. What the
maybe,
future is.
Maybe it would be with Philadelphia, right? Maybe, and I'm sure whenever that time comes, he will retire as a Philadelphia Eagle. And whether it's, one of those, just signing a paper kind of deal.
One-day contract.
Yeah, like a one-day contract, or if he'll just actually play. You never know, because it doesn't look like Dallas Goedert would be back next year with the Eagles, so maybe, halfway through next season. But, that's neither here nor there right now. When you look at this game today, obviously in Washington, Landover, Maryland, the Commanders do not want, I'm sure, the Eagles to be clinching the NFC East. In this stadium, in their stadium today, what do you think the mindset is of the Commanders? Final thing for you, as they're facing the Eagles with all the injuries and the season just kind of blowing up in their face. Do you think this will be an intense game? What is your thoughts on today's game?
I don't think it matters what the Commanders want this game to be like. They're not good enough unless they play a perfect game.
Well, the Eagles haven't looked great in every game. Coming off that Raiders game, sure, but the Eagles haven't looked great either.
It doesn't matter. This team got shut out 2 weeks ago by the Vikings, who are not a good team, and they gave up 31 points. It was, so it doesn't matter where the Eagles' level of play is so far above where Washington is right now. It doesn't. So unless the Eagles really have a bad game and the Commanders really play an almost perfect game, I don't see a way the Commanders are going to win this game. But who knows? Who knows? They do, like Dan Quinn has kind of created this thing that he's talking about with the players now, that since they're playing, the schedule is 4 straight NFC games, East games to finish the season. He's calling it the NFC East tournament, and we've got to survive and advance every week. And so they beat a terrible Giants team by, 8 points last week on the road. And they played the Eagles twice, and in between the 2 Eagles games, they played the Cowboys. So, good luck with that tournament, but I don't think that they're going to go undefeated in that tournament. And I'd frankly be surprised if they go 500 in the tournament, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Well, you sound so confident in the Commanders today. I'm sure Eagles fans will love what you're saying about the Commanders. Eagles 7-point favorites, and I think you just gave everyone confidence to be betting on the Birds today.
It's your money. I wouldn't bet on anything. I think betting is crazy, but it's your choice. I'm just telling you, right now, the Commanders are not a team that plays the way you have to play to beat a team of the caliber of the Eagles.
Yeah.
They've played Green Bay, they got beat convincingly. They've played Seattle, they got beat convincingly. They played Detroit, they got beat convincingly. They haven't been in a game against a good team really all season. So we'll see. Maybe today's the day.
All right, David Aldridge, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining us. You do a great job covering the Commanders for The Athletic. Great insight. I loved your work for years on TNT and ESPN. We really appreciate the insight today here on BetPARX Saturday.
Thanks, Jeff. Happy holidays to you.
All right, safe travels, you too. Safe travels down to the game tonight. Eagles-Commanders at 5 o'clock, a rare Saturday game. David Aldridge, great insight there about the Washington Commanders, where things stand with that franchise. Of course, It's a little bit of a weird schedule. Eagles, Commanders are going to play twice over the last 3 weeks of the season. Very bizarre, but it is what it is. That's the old saying, right? All right, so live sports betting, better on the BetPARX app, you betcha. You can get in the game. Live betting makes great watching the game that much more fun. Plus, BetPARX has great holiday offers for new users. Get a $50 casino bonus on the new game Huff and Lots of Puff, plus a $1,000 casino bonus back if you're down in your first 24 hours. BetPARX is the only app that can be recommended on sports and play the classic casino games as well, like blackjack, craps, roulette, and of course, the hot online slots like Huff and Puff and Divine Fortunes. The BetPARX online sportsbook and casino gives you another way to win. Double the spread on one select pro football game every weekend. Eagles, again, 7-point favorites against the Commanders today at 5 o'clock. We're going to talk about the gambling aspect now. Of course, BetPARX.com has all the details, everything you need to know. You must be 21 in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, or Michigan. Gambling problem, 1-800-GAMBLER. Do we have Brad Feinberg? Yes, we do. So we're going to talk now about the gambling aspect of this football game from the Eagles. Let's bring in our pro sports betting analyst, a great follow on Twitter, on X, whatever you want to call it, Brad's Best Bets. Brad Feinberg, thanks for joining us once again here on BetPARX Saturday, live from the Sportsbook at Parx Casino in Ben Salem. How's it going, Brad?
Jeff, it's always great to see you. How are you today?
Doing great. Eagles 7-point favorites against the Commanders. I've noticed the line moving a little bit the last few days. Why do you think that is?
Well, Jeff, look, I think it's maybe just the fact that you have, an Eagles team that theoretically obviously has something to play for versus a Washington team that doesn't. How do you gauge Washington's interest level in this game? Not, we always talk about motivation, Jeff, and what is Washington's motivation? A little hard to know what it is, but look, the Eagles last week, look, credit to them, Jeff, look, wasn't, I'm sure you've watched the Olympics and gymnastics, and when you're watching someone do some kind of move, they go, okay, degree of difficulty is an 8.6 here. This one's a 7.9. This one's a 9.4. Well, the degree of difficulty last week for the Eagles was probably like a 1, but they still won by a 31-0 margin, and they played well in doing so, even though the opponent wasn't so tough. So from that point of view, it was nice to see them get a win, granted against a very inferior opponent, but still, the way the Eagles have looked recently, Jeff, any kind of win to me was a positive.
Yeah, and look, I said this earlier in the show that they look great against the Commanders. I know it was the Commanders, but they need to show that again today. And if they can get hot at the right time, which is right here, right now, I think this team can make that Super Bowl run. When you look at this game, the over-under is 44. The Eagles have not had these big blowout games. And look, against this Commanders defense, the Eagles alone could score, I think, 44 points. You saw what they did last week against the Commanders. If you're placing money on this game today, are you going over or are you going under with the over-under at 44?
It's interesting, Jeff, because it's kind of like there's two different issues, right? You have, as you said, the Eagles defense, which I consider to be a top 5 defense, okay, going against a Washington offense, which, let's be honest. What do they really have right now?
Yeah, and we just talked to David Aldridge about that, who does a great job for The Athletic covering the Commanders. He is not hot at all on the Commanders, and obviously injuries have played a factor.
Yeah, injuries have played a factor, and again, it was sad seeing Zach Ertz get hurt. Obviously, as a Philly guy, I hated seeing that. But I would lean under, Jeff, only because I know the Eagles are going to want to run the ball, and what does running the ball mean? It's an under person's best friend, right? Because if you bet an under, you don't want passes, because passes are bigger plays, right? And they're also, if it's an incomplete pass, the clock stops. With a team like the Eagles, who theoretically want to run the ball, want to control the clock, are not looking to go hurry up and be the Jim Kelly Bills back in the early 90s. To me, I would look under. Again, not a game I personally love the total. That's a hard game. I think it's going to be maybe a little bit of a closer game than people think. But again, I think there's other better games personally to bet this week than this one. But I think the Eagles definitely, Jeff, should win the game, which is I know what most people who are watching the game care about, but if you're looking who's in the cover, I actually lean here to Washington covering, Jeff, and keeping it within the 7 points. But yeah, I just think
that's interesting. Because I think this game's going to be a blowout today. And look, I can think whatever I
could
want.
be.
You can think whatever you want. You never know,
Sure, exactly.
right? You never
100%
know.
you never know.
Any interesting prop bets that stand out? I saw a few. Jalen Hurts over 225 passing yards. AJ Brown 65.5 receiving yards. I saw a couple prop bets. Any of those prop bets that you like today when you look at this game?
I bet one prop game. And first of all, let me just say, Jeff, for everyone watching, and I think it's very important because I know not everyone, is necessarily quote unquote a sophisticated bettor, Jeff. Some people just are trying to do it recreationally, and they almost can feel intimidated, like, oh my God, I'm new to this. What does this mean? Don't feel like that, okay? First of all, and I'm being like, BetPARX, they have every possible thing in the world you could want. And what I mean by that is, Jeff, when I was growing up, or even 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 7 years ago, it didn't used to be what it's like now. Now you can go onto the BetPARX site, Jeff, and you can bet exactly, like, will A.J. Brown score a touchdown? Am I feeling it? Yes or no? Will Saquon Barkley score a touchdown? Yes or no? How many yards rushing will Saquon Barkley have? How many yards receiving will A.J. Brown have? It doesn't have to be the game that you can bet. You could just be feeling a certain player. You're like, you know what? I think this matchup is really good for a certain player or really bad for a certain player. And you don't have to just pick the game. You could just get your enjoyment of just betting on that individual player. What I did today, Jeff, look, and again, maybe I'm just being stubborn with it with Jalen Hurts and his running, but I bet over 26 and a half. I think I got over 26 and a half rushing yards for Jalen Hurts. He just goes over this far more than he doesn't. I wish he would run the ball more personally, Jeff. I think he's really good at it, and I feel like part of the Eagles' problems have been he's not been as willing to run as he has in the past. But I think that number's a tad too low. I think it should be in the 30s. I bet Jalen Hurts over rushing yards.
Yeah, a lot of that comes down to, I think, the whole shotgun versus under center stuff. But that's a whole nother.
Makes sense.
That's a whole nother conversation. So you said there were some other games this week, tomorrow, that you like better than the Eagles game. What are some of your picks?
Yeah. My favorite game, Jeff, and it's funny, my favorite game by far, and I just don't get the line. And I don't get the line. I really don't get the line. Is the Ravens are playing at home versus the Patriots. Jeff, to me, all year, the Ravens have been an average team. I think I'm being generous when I say average. I really think I'm being generous.
It's at 3, right? The Patriots.
Right, it's 3 points, right. And the Ravens are laying 3. And I think what we're seeing on that, Jeff, I always go down to that Aaron Nola thing we talked about a few weeks ago. Before the year, everyone and their grandmother had the Ravens ranked as the best team or best team in the AFC, second best team. Them, Kansas City, Buffalo, you got my point. And they were one of the 5 teams with Philadelphia, let's say Detroit, that was going to be a preeminent Super Bowl favorite. But all year we've seen Lamar Jackson get injured and really not be the same MVP player he's been the previous 3-4 years. I mean, just look at it. I mean, he's been a shell of what he was. And to me, New England's been the clear better team here, Jeff. And I mean clear. I think New England's going to win the game. So, and I think if Baltimore wins, guess what? I think it's going to be close. So I think I have a backstop if I'm wrong, and that New England loses the game within 3. And I think they're going to win the game outright, Jeff. That's my favorite game. I think, again, before the year, everyone thought this team was going to be all that in a bowl of cherries. They haven't been. They lost like a bunch in a row. And then because they beat the Bengals last week, now everything is great. It's kind of like how the Eagles beat the Raiders last week, now everything's great. Just not, I need a little bit more than that to be sure, Jeff. That's my favorite game of the week.
All right, and there's some other great ones too. I mean, I'm looking up and down the list, but and I'm an Eagles guy, so to me, I'm just staring at that one, going, that one doesn't make sense to me. But I thought it would be a lot more. Like, to me, it's easy to take the Eagles in this, but hey, what do I know, right? That's why we're asking you, our sports betting analyst.
It's never easy, Jeff. There's never such thing as easy. Another game, Jeff, I think it was a little off on the line. And look, you look at Tampa Bay and you look at Carolina. And to me, Tampa Bay is the comfort food. What do I mean by that? Like, okay, I get Mike Evans, I get Chris Godwin, I get Ibuka, I get Bucky Irving, I get Baker Mayfield, who was an MVP candidate the first 5 or 6 teams. Against the Carolina team, you're like, what do they have really? But here's the thing, Jeff. Having watching it, I try to always say, having watched Tampa Bay all year, they really, every single week, you want to think they're better than they are. And I don't know what they've done here to be a 3-point favorite on the road. Yes, they have a lot more talent than Carolina. I'll give you that. But to me, I thought this line should have been closer to Tampa Bay, but by 1.5. So many games land on 3, Jeff, which is a huge edge. I like the underdog Panthers at home catching a field goal. I think it's a close 50-50 kind of game. I'll take my chances it lands within 3.
And last thing for you, what about some college football playoff with that going on?
Yeah.
Anything standing out to you? What do you like with the college football playoff?
Well, Jeff, we got 2 games that haven't started yet. Okay. We have Tulane against Mississippi, which is a rematch. And by the way, Jeff, I'd have to say, the fact they allowed Tulane into this, oh man, it hurts me. And James Madison, it hurts me because it took out Notre Dame, who was a team that could have won the championship. And I think these teams are in over their head, Jeff. They played earlier this year, Tulane, Mississippi. Mississippi beat them by 4 touchdowns. I really don't know what I would see is different here other than the coaching change for Mississippi. Lean here, Mississippi, but the game I like better, I like Oregon to absolutely trounce James Madison. That line was sitting at 20.5, maybe up to 21 now, Jeff, but I think they're going to smoke them. I bet the Oregon team total over 33.5 points as well. I think Oregon, getting healthy in the offense side of the ball, getting a bunch of receivers back who missed time earlier. I just think we have an Oregon team that's playing well at the right moment against a team in Madison. They played one team in the top 50 all year. They played Louisville. They got smoked by 2 touchdowns. I don't think it's going to go well for these teams today. I don't think they're going to give a good showing.
All right, Brad Feinberg, our sports betting analyst here on Parks Saturdays, live from the sports book at Parks Casino.
I want to say one other thing, Jeff. I forgot. I forgot. And again, for all new bettors, and no one else does this in the world. No one in the world, Jeff. Parks every single weekend has a double the spread game. What do I mean? This year they picked the Lions versus Steelers, right? The spread is 7. Nope. If you're on Parks, you can get plus 14 with the Steelers. Plus 14. They're giving you a Christmas gift, and they're giving you a Christmas gift every single week. I'm not just saying this because I do the shows with you, Jeff. No other sports book in the world does this. I say it from the bottom of my heart because it's true. No other sports book in the world does this. Take the Steelers plus the 14. That's Parks' Christmas gift to you. You can even bet the other side. The Lions -7. Go for a nice middle, and you can't lose.
Yeah, the Lions, by the way, they need to win out to get a shot here of making the playoffs. Who would have thought? I thought the Eagles and Lions were the top 2 teams in the NFC this year, but we will see when it's all said and done. Lions need to play some desperate football. They have that underdog mentality, a lot like the Eagles and Philadelphia has built. Very, very similar cities in that. All right, Brad Feinberg, our betting expert
Appreciate you,
here
Jeff.
on BetPARX Saturday. Thank you, as always, for joining us. A great follow on
Thanks, Jeff.
X for all of his insight. Thanks, Brad. I appreciate it. So, of course, Brad's talking about some tendencies that we see. And when you look at the Eagles, we see a lot of tendencies the way they're playing football. And a lot of the frustration has come with the offense this year. They just haven't played really up to par, unless you talk about that Raiders game. And hopefully today at 5 o'clock against the Commanders. And one of the key issues is the way the creativity of the offense and Kevin Patullo. There's the debate. Do you play under center? Do you play out of shotgun? And, you know, against the Raiders, the Eagles played under center more than any other game this season. And look what they did, right? And I know it came against the Raiders. We talked about that at the beginning of the show around noon. They have to play better football, and maybe that just comes under center. And look, Jalen Hurts didn't do it a lot in college, but the way they have played under shotgun just hasn't been up to par. And the way they looked against the Raiders, it came majority under center. Maybe that's the way to go. Maybe that's going to be the success of this team because it's going to help the running game. It's going to help the passing game. And those two, of course, go hand in hand. So maybe, look, that's what they need to do because when they've played under center, they've had their 3 best games. The Raiders, the Vikings, and that second Giants game. When they've played the majority of offensive snaps under center, they have played their best. Out of the shotgun, they've looked atrocious. Listen to these tendencies. The Eagles, when they run shotgun under the majority of the snaps, are on 68% this year, okay? Under center, roughly 16 to 21%. The rest under pistol. So the shotgun remains the base look in most situations, especially on those passing downs. But you have to say to yourself, that's not working. We've seen what they have done. And listen to this. Shotgun plays approximately 3.2 yards per play overall. okay? 3.2 yards per play under the shotgun. When they go under center, 9.4 yards per play. That tells you everything you need to go. Everything you need to know is to run it under center. And to me, I just think, and the data's backing it up, that the Eagles need to play under center more so than they do under shotgun. And again, Jalen Hurts in college did not do a lot under center. It was the majority of shotgun. And it is interesting to hear how Kevin Patullo sees it, how Jalen Hurts sees it, how Nick Sirianni sees it. This football team, they'll say, hey, we do it this way because of the way the matchups lend against that team. We do it this way because the matchups say this. And in game, we make adjustments. But listen to what the Eagles said this week about that debate, whether it should be shotgun, whether it should be under center. The Eagles talked about that heavily this week. I want you to listen in very carefully. They really broke it down about why they do it this way, why they do it that way. It's interesting insight to hear from the Philadelphia Eagles. Listen about the debate, shotgun versus under center. Listen.
Of course, yeah, he hadn't done a lot of that in college, but he's just somebody that's going to continue to work hard at the things, at everything. Like again, you wouldn't expect him. He works hard at everything that he does, and loves this game of football and puts everything into it. And so, anything that he's doing, he works really hard at, and obviously this is no exception.
I think the best part about him is, his willingness to really try and do anything. And he's a pretty quick learner, right? So he's good about when you say, hey, let's take a look at this. How does that feel? What does that look like to you? Or what do you think about this? I mean, he's done a great job of just taking coaching and having input. And I think the best thing you can do as a coach is always obviously listen to the players and have the communication lines open, right? Because ultimately they have to do it, but you can help them. And when they trust you and they know, there's a two-way street, I think it can go a long way, and you can see his development in so many areas, and he continues to do a good job.
Yeah, he's done. I think he can be very successful and efficient any way he needs to go and play. And whether that's the gun, whether that's in pistol, whether that's under center, he's shown the ability to be able to win and be efficient and a good with everything from all different levels. So whether that's on the move, whether that's slightly on the move, whether that's a drop back, and right in the same area. I just think he's been efficient throughout his course of his career and everything that he kind of goes through.
He's done a really good job. I mean, really from when we kind of started doing this early in the season and working through the Vikings game, that was a big step for him. But he works extremely hard at it. You can see him even in between periods, in between special team stuff, whatever he needs to do, he's working on his footwork, working on the timing. He's extremely dedicated to make sure he's always on time and in rhythm, and he's working the under center stuff because it is a little new. We've dabbled in it obviously in the past, but he's doing a great job with it, and he works extremely hard at it, so it's been great.
Just think you've seen us be better at complementing some of the things we've been doing for the run game and being able to establish the run game. Kind of some of those changes have been to try and get the run game going a bit, and a byproduct has been able to throw it the way we have. It's just a marriage of whatever your runs are. So you want to try and marry whatever runs in you have that week. And this past week, it seemed that we had a lot more runs in under center. So it just naturally complemented when we put it together. And that starts with Coach Sirianni and Coach KP.
Yeah, so when you look at it, when you formulate the plan each week, basically you look at, okay, what do they do? Is there something different they do, whether under center or gun? Is there something that we did last week that we want to try to do again or build on? And you kind of go from there. So each game can look a little bit different as far as shotgun and under center. And really it starts with the run game. And once you go from the run game, you can build the pass game off of it. And then it just kind of, you streamline it throughout the week. And then during the game, if you stay on track, obviously certain things can happen to where, the under center can go even more or less depending on what they're doing. And so it really completes the game plan when you have plays off of plays, right? And the under center kind of marries up with each other and the shotgun.
I think we've predominantly been a shotgun run team here. And, I think in 22 we led the NFL in rushing, and in 24 we led the NFL in rushing. So 2 out of these last 4 years we have. There's benefits, and like I said, I'm not there's not just one way to do things, right? And then there's under center thought process, right? And so, or pistol thought process. So there's a bunch of different ways to do it. Again, but there's reasons why you get in the gun, and there's reasons you get under center, and and there's multiple ways to do different things. Like, I think I learned that, I probably didn't learn that until middle of my career so far of it been like, what I used to think is like, whatever I think, and then whenever I'm sold on is this, and it's like, no, there's many different ways to accomplish things. I think that just comes with time and with wisdom of, there's a lot of different ways to be a successful offense.
There is a lot of ways this team can be successful, but there's no question the results are the results, which are under center. They have been a better football team. They've been more dynamic, and it gives them more versatility for the passing game and the run game. And, they go hand in hand, of course. You have to get Saquon Barkley going. He has not been able to get going under the shotgun. So do it under center, get them going. Let's see another great performance by the Birds today against the Commanders, clinch that NFC East, and then another great one against the Bills. And I think that will make everyone feel great, not just the fan base, but the players, and give them that confidence. So I'd like to see the Eagles more under center today against the Commanders. And, of course, just blow this game open to really get this offense going in the right direction. All right, tonight at Parx Casino, Aaron Lewis and the Stateliners in concert. There are tickets still available, just announced. Some of the big headlines coming here to Ben Salem, February 28th, country artist Brett Young. March 14th, comedian Tracy Morgan will be here at Parx Casino in Ben Salem. April 3rd, Cheap Trick. May 14th, the Wallflowers. You can give the gift of the entertainment this holiday season. They make great stocking stuffers. Tickets to see national headliners at the Excite Center here at Parx Casino. They make a great gift for family and friends. Parx Casino has something for everyone's entertainment taste. Saturday, January 17th, Classic Rockers, Grand Funk Railroad. The 31st of January, the Saturday, the Marshall Tucker Band and Jefferson Starship. Saturday, February 7th, Piano Man Generations, a tribute to Elton John and Billy Joel. Coming up in April 18th, Melissa Etheridge will be here in Ben Salem. ParxCasino.com to buy tickets. You must be 21, gambling problem, 1-800-GAMBLER. So we've talked a lot today on this show, a lot of football, a lot about the Eagles. There's a lot to talk about with this football team. Again, hopefully a big game today. But also making news this week, the Philadelphia Phillies, making a ton of moves, really reshaping that bullpen, cutting some salary, trying to bring in some youth, doing some different things there. The big move, of course, this week is the outfielder, Adolis Garcia. Do you like the move? Look, to me, this is an upgrade. This is certainly an upgrade in right field over Nick Castellanos, who, by the way, is still on the roster. I mean, I don't know a situation where he will be back, but, Nick Castellanos is either going to get traded or released. I'd like to see them get something, maybe a low-level prospect for him that another team can eat the money, and, of course, somebody that has some promise. But Nick Castellanos is not in the Phillies' plans. Dave Dombrowski and Rob Thompson, they did not talk about him at all. They said the outfield is set this week. And when you talk about Garcia, he has one of the best arms in all of baseball. So it's an upgrade defensively. No questions asked. But if you look at the numbers year in and year out offensively, the last few years, they are very similar to Nick Castellanos. And I know the Phillies are betting that Adolis Garcia is going to have that breakout season, and they believe that he can get with Kevin Long, their hitting coach, and figure this out. But the overall picture of this outfield, I'm not a fan. I'm sorry. And we're going to get into Justin Crawford, and I think it's time for him to come up. There's some pressure on him, but there's pressure on all these guys. But I'm not in love with this outfield. You're asking a lot from not only Justin Crawford to have him in center as a rookie, but you're asking for Garcia to have this big bounce back year. And can he be the guy? Remember, he was the ALCS MVP in 2023. He was phenomenal. But last year, batted .227, 19 homers, 75 RBIs last season with the Texas Rangers. I think, again, he is an upgrade from Nick Castellanos, and I think Castellanos really had a rough year just on and off the field. You remember he was benched. He had that run-in with Rob Thompson, the Phillies manager. But Garcia, one-year deal, $10 million. And Castellanos has 1 year, $20 million left on his deal. So if you're getting the same player and essentially maybe, saving $10 million, although, they're still on the hook for the 20 on Castellanos, I think it's an upgrade, and I think it's a risk you have to take. And if this Phillies team is going to get over the hump, yes, they need their stars and Harper and Turner and Schwarber to perform. But you also need these role players to step up. And look, Garcia, as I said, if you go back to that 2023 ALCS and that playoff run, his postseason run in 2023 for the Rangers, 323 average, 8 homers, 22 RBIs. He had a walk-off homer in Game 1, ALCS MVP. And it's clearly a sign he is not afraid of that big moment. And I think that is huge. Can they get him to perform? The Phillies talked that they believe he can be a starting right fielder. They believe that they can fix what has gone on the last few years, and maybe they don't need him to be the Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber, and they need those numbers, and they don't need him to be the Trey Turner kind of guy in the lineup, but he's a right-handed bat. He can provide some protection around the lefties. The Phillies like this guy, and the Phillies are confident they can figure him out. And he's going to get to Clearwater early, down to Florida, and really work at this. He's a passionate player. I think Phillies fans, assuming that he plays well, will be behind this guy more so than Castellanos. Here's Rob Thompson and Dave Dombrowski this week talking about what they like about Adolis Garcia. Listen to this.
It helps. I mean, it doesn't hurt, but you also have to be careful if there's just small sample sizes. But it's apparent that he's not afraid of the big moments. We've seen that throughout his career. And I think in our situation, it's a comfort zone for playing with a club that has a chance to win and also being potentially in the postseason. So sure, it helps. It helps having that type of success.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. There's the emotional part of it where you're trying to do too much, trying to put the team on your shoulders. That comes into play. And then there's a physical part of it too, is that, and it's body and mind related, but for Adolis being a right-hand hitter, thinking about staying on the ball, thinking a little bit more about right center field and, just cutting down the swing and making better decisions. And that comes with reps and different drills, and our hitting coaches will be all over that. It all depends on performance and things like that. But I think that if Adolis does what he normally does, and he's just himself, I think he's one of those protector guys for those left-handed bats. So where that is, I'm not really sure, because I'm not really sure right now where the top 3 guys are going to line up. So we'll figure it out. But I'm expecting really good things from Adolis.
Our scouts had very good reports on him from what they saw. Even though some of the stuff may be slightly down, it's still positive in many directions. I think the one thing that we talked to Adolis when he signed about this, he needs to be more under control with his swing. We don't need him to hit the ball out of the ballpark on every swing or every at bat. We think he can do that. And our hitting coaches, to me, that's one of the things that they do very well with working with individuals. So to me, it's a matter of putting more, not trying to do too much would be the best example of why we think it's there. The tools are there. The ball jumps off his bat still. So bat speed's still there. Exit velocity is very good. So those are all things that we feel encouraged about. And I'll let Topper. And our scouts had good reports on him from last year. Now, again, not the best year last year for him or the last couple of years, but there's still a lot of positives in there as far as the ability is concerned. And we think it has more to do with approach than it would be abilities.
Yeah, no doubt. I agree 100%. I talked to Adolis last night on the phone. Georgie and I talked to him, and that was essentially the message, is that you have to be yourself and relax, have fun, be yourself. Don't try to do too much, because we got a lot of really good players around him. I know that Texas had some injuries last year. Maybe he tried to do a little bit too much for the team. So it's just really getting back to basics, controlling the strike zone a little bit better, using the field, because his power stands out in any part of the ballpark. So, I'm super excited about this. I really am, because he's a really good defender. He can really throw. He's a great guy. He's really good friends with Sosa. So that tells you something about the guy, the man. So I'm really excited about this. I just got a call from K Long, so I couldn't answer it. But yeah, we're going to get either K Long or Edouard Gonzalez, who's down in Miami, up to Tampa to see Adolis and start chipping away at this and see if we can get him a little bit better. This guy's a talented guy, and he's I mean, last year maybe for him it's a down year, but it's still a lot of production, and you got that really good defense. So we're gonna get to work here pretty quick, and I'm sure that K Long will be into Tampa soon.
We discussed the situation. We're signing him, in our view, as being our everyday right fielder, but he needs to show that. I mean, as he knows, he has to be in a position that he performs, and he's aware of that. We think he can do it. Very good defensively, and also from an offensive perspective, of course, has a lot of tools. We think he'll be able to do that. So basically, I think with the signing here, we look at him as being our right fielder, and then we're in a position where we're basically pretty well set out there, because with Justin Crawford being able to play center or left, Brandon Marsh the other, mixed in with a little bit of Otto Kemp out there, Rojas as a backup in center field too, that and then Rincona's coming, that we feel very good. I think that a lot of people look at it, they're unsure, but if you're going to give Crawford an opportunity, you've got to give it to him. And that's where we are. We're going to give him the opportunity to go out there and have a chance to play, a lot. So basically, I think our outfield's pretty well set. It's a situation that we like the players. We think Brandon Marsh is a good player, particularly when he hasn't taken the next step versus left-handed pitching. We've talked about that. Will he do it? I'm not sure. But we do like Otto Kemp. We think when we look at ourselves, that's one of the best combos in left field if you look at the two of them. Adolis, we think it helps us in right field. It gives us an improvement there. And we think Justin's going to be a good player. We'll just but again, with young players, you have to give them the opportunity, and people may say, well, this versus that, and he's not as good as this versus that. But until you put him out there, you really don't know. But we think he's going to be very good. We think he's going to be a really good player. He has some real speed to our ball club. He makes contact. Just a lot of good things about him. So that's why we think it shapes up to be good outfield for us.
I don't agree that this looks like a good outfield. I mean, I really don't. And I do like the Garcia signing. I do like them bringing Adolis Garcia in here, because it gives the ability to, hey, this guy could have a red-hot season. There's a lot of ifs, and that's across the board. Even with Bryce Harper, even with Trey Turner, even with Kyle Schwarber, there are the what-ifs we saw in the playoffs. I mean, this team on paper, they should have won multiple World Series, but it just goes to show just how difficult it is. This outfield, I'm not in love with, and I don't think a lot of people are in love with. And you can't have $50 million players at every position. It's just not possible. And you also have to remember, not everybody's going to even want to come here as a free agent. But I do have major concerns in the outfield. I mean, okay, one is, can Adolis Garcia be that staple in right field and be better than Nick Castellanos? Okay, let's hope so. He has the ability, right? He's great defensively. That's an upgrade. But offensively, what are we going to see? Justin Crawford, the rookie. We don't know, right? You don't know. And again, I think they need to have that youth and that energy around the team. We just don't know. Then Brandon Marsh in left, maybe a little Otto Kemp. I think Otto has shown flashes and Brandon Marsh has shown flashes, but are you in love with it? I mean, I think those are great guys off the bench. I don't know about starting left fielders. I mean, maybe we're wrong, and you do need your younger players to take that next step and be those players. But I don't feel good about the outfield. Do you? Do you feel great about this Phillies outfield? And it sounds to me, listening to Rob Thompson and Dave Dombrowski, that they're set there, right? I don't know. And so when you talk about Justin Crawford, third best prospect in the Phillies system, 54th ranked prospect in all of baseball. It's his time. It's time to see what this guy can do, and hopefully he's a mainstay in that center field, in the outfield, or the corner position for, the next 10 years. We just don't know. But look, he's hit over 300 over the last 3 years in the minors, including last year in AAA Lehigh Valley. He hit 334. He has stolen over 40 bases in each of the last 3 years, including last year. I believe he had 46 at Lehigh Valley for the Iron Pigs. He's speedy, he steals bases, and whether he's at the top of the lineup or the bottom of the lineup, helping turn it over, he gets on base, he can hit, but there's no pop. Like, Justin Crawford is not a home run guy, and so you're going to need that pop from Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber and Trey Turner and hopefully Garcia. But again, I don't love this outfield. The Phillies, they believe that Crawford is that right fit. It's his time, and I really hope so. Here's more about why the Phillies believe in Justin Crawford. Listen to Dave Dombrowski and Rob Thompson on Justin Crawford, their third best prospect, he's going to be the starting center fielder. Listen.
We think so. That's the way I would say so. We believe so. We'd like to have that happen. And I think, again, if you talk to some people in the organization, or some people feel he might be a little better in left than in center, but also still being able to play center field and play it well. He's got great speed. So we do think that way. That's going to be our first objective. We'll wait and we'll see what happens, but we think he can do it, yes.
There's going to be challenges. There always is. And I talked to Justin last night because I knew that he was going to hear about the Adolis deal. And being a young kid, I just wanted to reiterate the fact that he's coming into camp to win a job. And signing Adolis does not affect Justin at all. Again, I want him to come into camp, be himself. And if he is himself, he'll make this club. So, I just like the way the entire outfield is sort of shaping up right now.
Yeah, the outfield is shaping up, and the bullpen is shaping up with the flurry of moves they made this week, including getting rid of Matt Strahm, the All-Star. I don't love that. I think Matt Strahm is really good as a seventh, eighth inning guy. He's tough on lefties, but you can't keep everybody, and certainly they're trimming some salary there. But again, I don't care what anyone says. I am not impressed with this outfield right now, and I really hope they make one other move. Maybe they will surprise us, but just listening to Dave Dombrowski and Rob Thompson, I don't get the opinion, and they've been upfront about what they're doing this offseason. I don't get the impression that another big move is coming, and the trade market for Nick Castellanos is not great. They may end up just releasing the guy, which would be worst case scenario. But the next move really is going to come down to JT Realmuto. Is the Phillies catcher going to be back? And I don't think you have any other choice. My understanding, they have an offer out to JT Realmuto. They want to bring him back. I believe Realmuto and his family, they want to come back, and the number has to be right. But for a long time, Realmuto was the best catcher in baseball. I don't think he's still the best catcher in baseball. Certainly his plate production is down, but he has a great rapport with the Phillies starting pitchers. He's done a great job with those younger pitchers, from Christopher Sanchez, especially with Christopher Sanchez and Jesus Luzardo. And, of course, he does a great job with Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola and Ranger Suarez, who, I don't think will be back. But they have to bring back, I think, JT Realmuto. And maybe they have too many aging guys, but I don't think there's a better second option out there for the Philadelphia Phillies. And that seems to be the next top priority, is signing JT Realmuto. Will it come this week? Will it come next week around Christmas? I don't know, but listen to Dave Dombrowski. He certainly is trying to get a deal done with JT Realmuto.
Here's really our main focus, I think, at this point, where we are. We continue to stay in contact, but probably not a lot different than where we've been in the past. So we just continue to grind along and see if we can come up with a solution. We've talked about consistently about trying to sign JT, and we remain that way. But we haven't been able to get it done so far. I think you're always to get better but I don't have a real big need. I guess we look for, arms in the bullpen, but we're also, we've got 5 solid guys out there that are a veteran status. And so sometimes you have to give some young guys an opportunity too. We think that we have some guys that we like. So, that's really where it stands. And maybe, depth at different positions, we're dealing with that. But I think as far as our everyday positional players, other than catcher, we're pretty well set.
They sound well set, and maybe the Phillies will be getting rid of Alec Boehm and trying to make an upgrade there. But, if you look at just Alec Boehm's numbers, it looks good, right? And I know, sometimes when you're watching day in and day out, you're like, oh, they could upgrade at third base, but how are you doing that, right? What's going to happen with Bryson Stott? Is he really an everyday player? I don't know. I think that remains to be seen, but everyone needs to take a step in the right direction, including JT Realmuto, assuming he comes back. But the everyday player set, I think they need some more energy, and I think they need a better bat. Like, I don't like Alec Boehm batting cleanup. I just don't. And I know they're trying to provide protection with Harper and Schwarber and things like that, but I want to see them make one other big move. I want to get really excited about this Phillies team because it's been a rough few years in the postseason. Everyone knows this is a playoff team and this should be a World Series team. They just haven't gotten there, and it looks like for the most part they are running it back, minus a few bullpen moves, minus a few moves here and there. So again, we'll see if JT Realmuto gets done. That is their top priority for the Philadelphia Phillies right now. All right, we're here at Parx Casino in Bensalem, Pennsylvania, at the Sportsbook, right here on PHLY Sports YouTube channel. Live sports betting better than ever on the BetPARX app. You can get in the game. Live betting makes watching the game that much more fun. Plus, BetPARX has a great holiday offer for new users. You can sign up right now, get a $50 casino bonus on the new game, Huff and Lots of Puff, plus up to 1,000 casino bonus back if you're down in the first 24 hours. So that is really a safe bet, right? BetPARX, the only app that can be recommended. BetPARX for sports and to play the classic casino games. Blackjack, craps, roulette, slot games, including that online slot game we just talked about, Huff and more Puff. Divine Fortunes, another one. Plus, the BetPARX online sportsbook and casino gives you another way to win. Double the spread on one select pro football game every weekend. We talked about that with Brad Feinberg. We've gotten a lot of detail there. Pro football, big one today, of course. Are you excited? Just about 3+ hours away. Birds, Commanders, down in Landover, Maryland. Eagles, 7-point favorites. You must be 21 in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, or Michigan to gamble. BetPARX.com has all the details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. We've had a jam-packed show as we kick things off here at noon from Parx Casino in Bensalem, live from the Sportsbook on the PHLY Sports YouTube page. We've talked a lot about the Eagles, a lot about the Phillies. What about the Flyers? We haven't talked about the Flyers in a while. Do you believe in this team? New head coach, but it seems like it's the same old. They're in that second rebuild, since making that Stanley Cup run in 2010 against the Blackhawks. It really feels like, is this Flyers team, are they really a team that you can get behind? They still feel years away with what Danny Briere and Keith Jones are doing. They feel years away. Right now, the Flyers in action, they have just tied it up against the Rangers in the second period, tied at 1 in this game. Travis Sanheim scored a goal just moments ago to tie it up. But obviously, the Flyers, losing Tyson Forster, their second leading goal scorer, that's an issue. And those are among the topics I talked to with former Flyers defenseman Chris Therien. He's a great analyst, played 11 years with the Flyers, and he had some great insight on the Flyers. Are you believing in this team? Can this team make a playoff run? Do they need to make a playoff run? All the things we talked about with former Flyers star defenseman Chris Therien. Take a listen to our conversation.
Boy,
Former Flyer star Chris Terrian, what's happening?
What's going on, Jeff? Good to see you, bud.
So I'm trying to get excited about the Flyers, and I'm just trying to go, is it too early? And it feels like we're in the second rebuild here. And what has really been a really tough stretch the last few years. Are you buying the Flyers? Do you believe in this young team and the direction it's headed right now?
Yeah, I think the way that they've played this year, and then they've done so many good things this year, the amount of comebacks they've had. Mind you, I don't love being behind in a lot of games that they've been in, but they've done a lot of really good things. The acquisition of Trevor Zegras has opened up the offense for the Flyers, and I like the direction they're going. You know, I still think there's still a body of work that they're still working on, trying to add pieces. You know, you got Porter Martone, who's a great young player that's playing at Michigan State. He'll be on the U.S. World Junior team, but there's a lot to look forward to down the road, and I still think the best is yet to come.
I want to ask you, when you look at this team as a whole, you know, when you look at the history of this organization, this really has been the worst stretch. Do you think this team, the way they're built right now, with maybe a piece here and there, is sustainable, and this rebuild that we're in right this second is the future of the Flyers, or are you just not convinced just yet?
Yeah, I'm not totally convinced. I know that they're trying to make moves to make the team better every year, but you can't get everybody right away. So I think those decisions will come down to Danny Briere of what he wants to add to this team, you know, what kind of player he wants to add. I still believe they need a lot of high-end talent. Sometimes it's harder to go pluck that off a trade market than it is to go draft it. You know, when you get draft guys, you get the opportunity where the Flyers have been to pick kind of high, and you can get a player like a Porter Martone 6th overall. But I don't believe that this is the team that they're going to stack into the future with. I think they need more bodies and far more high-end talent than what they have right now.
What do you think the biggest issue is? If you were GM for a second, if you were Danny Briere, like what are some moves you would be looking at to do to make this team better?
Well, I think the biggest glaring thing that I see that the lack of for this hockey team is a big center presence down the middle. You know, they have Christian Dvorak playing as a number one center right now. And that's fine and everything, but that's not where he's naturally supposed to be slated. So if Danny Briere can find somebody in the trade market that can open up more offense by having a big, dependable center iceman that can take those heavy top line minutes, that is probably the most sought after thing right now for this team.
You obviously played hockey when it was a very, very physical sport. You talk about a big center. You played in a very physical era. And it seems like, you know, that old school way of hockey is just completely out the window. And even coaching styles. I mean, John Tortorella versus Rick Tocchet, obviously they have different personalities. And, you know, look, Rick played in that era that you did as well, where things were tough. What do you think the biggest difference has been in the coaching styles between John Tortorella and Rick Tocchet?
Well, I think Torts was a very demanding guy, you know, somebody that wanted to take the team and kind of mold it and form it under his direction, you know, and sometimes there was a lot that went with that, a lot of disciplinary stuff. He was tough on players a lot. You could ask many players in the team would go and tell you that he made their life miserable some days, but that was in his mind to get the betterment out of the team. Rick Tocchet's approach as a coach is more of an open door policy, like let's have a discussion. The thing with players today in any sport, I don't care if it's football, basketball, hockey, baseball, when a player, before when I played, you were told what to do and you had to go out and execute that. There was no discussion about it. You go take that guy and run him through the boards or that top line. I want you to go out there and really make life miserable on those guys. Nowadays, when you say that to a player, you can say it, but the player looks back at you and asks why. You know, it's a completely different world of how people have evolved in the sporting world. And so coaches, rather than just saying to the player, I don't care what you have to say about it, I want you to do what I told you. Now there's a discussion and there needs to be an explanation to the player as to why the coach wants something done that way. And I think that makes it kind of interesting. That's really the change in the styles going back 25 years into today's game. Today's game also features a lot more skill and speed than it did in a prior era.
Yeah, there's like, it seems like it's all finesse and it's not as physical, and the hitting and the fighting's not there. You know, the old school Broad Street Bullies type hockey. But do you think, based on that last answer you gave me, do you think players are soft now, not just in hockey, but in all the sports? Like guys are soft, or you just think it's just evolved into more of a back and forth?
Yeah, I don't want to call anybody soft because I know what dedication and what effort it takes to make pro sports and to be a professional hockey player especially. I don't want to call guys soft. They're just different. It's just a different mentality out there because they don't have to go through the physical rigors that guys did prior to probably I would say like the 2011 lockout is when I started to see a change to the game to being a more skill finesse game than it was a rough and tumble physical game. So I think there's a lot to that. But, again, the players have changed. They're not any softer. They're just different than they were before, and they want answers, and they want to have a discussion about the path forward that's been put at their feet.
This team losing their second leading goal scorer in Tyson Forrester, how much do you think that changes this team when you look at them overall with his injury? Going to miss basically the season here, barring a Stanley Cup run. How much does this hurt this team when you look at the contributions he's made?
Yeah, I mean, he's really become probably the Flyers' best forward. I can say that, in terms of the way he plays both sides of the ice. He's responsible defensively. He's found a niche for scoring goals. He was on pace, take away the first injury he had. He looked like he was on pace to close to 40 goals this year. So when a player goes down, the coach said it the other day, and it's kind of an old adage in hockey. You got to go out by committee and try to make up for that deficit that one player left. And there's other guys that do have to step up in the goal scoring department. And I think that's what you're dealing with right now because you can't replace a Tyson Forster. You have to do it by committee. One guy who's done a great job of it so far is the Phantoms call-up, Carl Grundstrom. He's done a great job finding some offense in the replacement of Forster.
Yeah, and when you look at this team, how much for the fan base do you think? Because it's been a while. I mean, when I look at this, they haven't made the playoffs since 2020. They haven't made out of the second round since 2012. One playoff series win over the last 13 years. Would you say that this team needs to make the playoffs for the fan base to just really just be full throttle? Like here, I mean, what are your expectations for this team, and what does the fan base need here to buy in?
Yeah, I think, first of all, come on out to the building and watch the hockey team. I think for the most part at home games this year, a lot of people have been surprised at the effort that they put in. They never give up. No, they had a tough game against Buffalo the other night, but that happens sometimes in a schedule. But they don't give up. They're a resilient hockey team. They play faster. They play with skill, and they're a lot funner to watch. And I agree with you, Jeff, and I understand the fans' frustration. I've been a part of it for many of those years here with the Flyers missing the playoffs and not having won a series going back until 2012. So those are tough times, and the fans have been patient enough. I do think that a playoff berth this year would be a really, really great first step for this group to try to get into the playoffs. And I don't diminish that at all. I think it's an important step and one that I hopefully can transpire because the Flyers are in position now to do that.
Yeah, I miss playoff hockey. I mean, I remember, just like it was yesterday, that Stanley Cup run they made against the Blackhawks and how much fun that was, and the comeback against the Bruins, one of the hated rivals. And I miss that, and that team was great, and the way they played, and that run was just so special, and they came just so close. I miss it, and I feel like Philadelphia needs that.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the fans are hoping for that too. And you can see the run the Eagles have gone on. These Flyer players have all been a part of watching this Philadelphia Eagles team go on and win the Super Bowl last year. See the passion of the fans. Watch the Phillies run, even though it didn't go the way that they wanted in the past fall. But I think it's time for this team to get back into the playoffs. I think the fans want it. I know the players obviously want to get there and kind of flip coins when you get there and see what happens. That's what's great about the Stanley Cup playoffs. Anything can happen when you get in. And there's been a lot of great series in the past the fans can relish and remember from past days and Flyers glory in the playoffs from before.
I know how much you love hockey, but also near and dear to your heart is the work you do off the ice. And you have an outpatient rehab facility, and you came out with a book a couple years ago, Chris Therrien's Road to Redemption, released in 2022. Tell me about that off the ice journey and what led you to all of this.
Yeah, it was, I'm somebody that openly shared my story about addiction to alcohol, even during my last couple of years of my playing career and subsequently after. And what that meant to me in my life and what I had to do was being a father of 4 kids at the time and wanting to make a change for my life. So I was able to, very luckily and with the will of God, be able to quit my drinking for good. I'll be 15 years sober come February this year.
Wow, congrats.
And, yeah, thanks. And so, it's been a great journey for me, but I wanted to inspire my kids. First of all, I wanted them to see that they had a dad that really did care, that wasn't that person that they saw sometimes. And then ultimately, to give back. And then, understanding the plight that other people have gone through with their own recovery and their own struggles in their process of recovery. I opened a center called Pennsylvania Recovery Center. I partner with a really good guy over in the city, and we're down on 1026 Winter Street, which is like right about 10th and Vine. We moved locations from Fishtown, and we're still getting a ton of people in, getting the help that they need. And there's nothing I love more than when somebody comes up after they graduated from our program and said, hey, you really got me to where I needed to be. Or someone says, hey, this program saved my life. That's so meaningful to me because we understand that we are in the business of trying to change people's lives for the better. And my success story and me being able to share my story is what I want people to understand, because I believe there's hope for anybody that's struggling with addiction.
Yeah, it's an amazing story. I mean, you told me a few years ago, we did a story together just about, you would have alcohol in your system during games.
Yeah.
And then, there was a wake up call. There was that moment where you turn the corner and now you're helping others. What would your message be to somebody that is struggling right now and that does need help and say, and they may say to themselves that, look, I don't know if I can do this. What would your message be?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jeff. And every time I talk to somebody, every time someone calls and says they need to get to rehab or they need to make a change in their life, the one thing I constantly hear in their voice is fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of what's to come, fear of what has been. And I tell people openly, like, if you're struggling and you're really having a hard time, pick up the phone, call me, and say, you know what, I got a problem and I want help. And we'll handle the rest of it. As long as you have a willingness to try to quit and to try to turn the corner and go the other way, that's all we're looking for. And sometimes it's a process. Sometimes it doesn't happen overnight. There's not a lot of first-time winners in recovery. But as long as you have the knowledge and the willingness to seek out help and allow people to help you, you'll have a chance of beating your addiction.
Yeah, and obviously I'm sure for you, you play in the NHL for 11 years, you're one of the Flyers stars at that point. I'm sure there's a point where you're, I don't know, were you embarrassed or ashamed? And I'm sure other people have that same feeling of not only the unknown of whether I can do this or not, but also that, hey, I'm this person or I'm ashamed and why me? Did you have that, especially, being a very, very popular face in the NHL and in the city of Philadelphia?
Yeah, the worst part with addiction is you live in your own skin with that, right? And you try to hide it and conceal it from other people because you don't want them to know your business. You don't want them to know that you're struggling somehow. So you hide that. And I think that was something that was very difficult for me. I used to look at myself in the mirror and understanding I have a drinking problem. What do I do about it? Do I continue down this path or do I decide I want to make a change? And me, unlike those people I was just talking about that are scared to ask for help, I was one of those guys for a long time that was afraid to say anything to everybody because it kind of built into my character. I played here in Philly almost my entire career. I become accustomed to a regular routine, a regular schedule of how to do things. And really it was me looking in the mirror and yeah, did I feel shame and embarrassment? I absolutely did. And I'm glad I did because it helped me be able to find the courage in myself to put down my bad habit and try to work on being the better version of myself.
Well, it's amazing you did something about it, but Chris Therien, Road to Redemption, the book you released in 2022, and obviously still working to help others. I really admire the work you're doing off the ice with that.
Thanks so much, Jeff. I really appreciate it. We are making a lot of changes in people's lives. And like I just said, if anybody's struggling with addiction or help, reach out to me, get a hold of me somehow. I promise you we'll have your back and we'll get you on the right path to recovery.
All right, Chris Therien, great catching up. Thanks for the great insight on the Flyers and what you're doing off the ice.
Thanks so much, Jeff. Great to see you. Happy holidays.
You too. All right, great insight there from Chris Therien, former Flyer star. Again, Flyers, of course, in action right now against the New York Rangers. And a big one tonight. Eagles, Commanders, Birds, 7-point favorites down in D.C. Again, a win tonight. And the Eagles clinch back-to-back NFC East titles. Can they get it done? They better get it done. Another game like the Raiders, we want to see that today. They should. This Commanders defense, brutal. Well, that'll do it for us on BetPARX Saturday, live from the Sportsbook at Parx Casino in Ben Salem. For my producer, Andrew Frazier, I'm Jeff Skversky. A special thank you to all of our guests today, including former Eagles legend Seth Joyner, as well as Flyers legend Chris Therien, and great insight there from Brad Feinberg on all of your gambling bets. That'll do it for us on BetPARX Saturday. We'll see you next week. Have a great day.
We all silly like the mayor.